The city was alive beneath the cloak of twilight. Skyscrapers pierced the dusky sky, their glass windows reflecting a million shimmering lights. It was a world that never slept, a glittering cage of power, money, and secrets. And tonight, amidst that glittering haze, Lisa Winters returned to the place where her world had once shattered. The sleek black Mercedes glided silently along the long driveway of the Hawthorne estate, its polished surface reflecting the opulence that surrounded it. When it halted at the foot of the grand marble steps, the driver stepped out quickly, opening the door with a reverent bow. Lisa emerged slowly, one leg first, poised, elegant, like a queen returning to reclaim her stolen throne. Her stilettos clicked softly against the white marble, echoing into the cold evening air. She wore a deep burgundy dress that hugged her figure with the subtlety of confidence and power. Her makeup was flawless, her hair swept into a graceful chignon, her eyes lined like the sharp edge of a blade. Those eyes, piercing, haunted, unyielding, glanced up at the towering mansion ahead. This house had once been Ava's home. Now, Lisa was back. Not as Ava's sister. Not as a grieving soul. But as something else. Something dangerous. She inhaled slowly, as if drawing strength from the very stones of the estate. The scent of roses, freshly trimmed from the garden beside the entrance, mingled with the sharp tang of money in the air. The kind of scent that only bloomed in places soaked in wealth, pride, and hidden rot. As she stepped through the grand doors, a butler greeted her with a practiced smile. "Miss Winters. Welcome to the Hawthorne estate. Mr. Aiden will join you shortly." She nodded politely, her expression unreadable. "Thank you." She was led into a lavish lounge, where velvet couches rested beside a golden-rimmed fireplace, its warmth flickering across walls lined with oil paintings and antique mirrors. Everything gleamed, polished to perfection, carefully curated, like the life Victoria Hawthorne projected to the world. But Lisa knew better. Ava had told her everything. The secrets that were never meant to leave these walls. The late-night arguments. The locked rooms. The way Victoria played the role of a devoted wife by day and something else entirely by night. And now Ava was gone. They said she had jumped from the third-floor balcony. The staff whispered about depression. Some blamed exhaustion. But Lisa knew her sister. Ava had been soft-hearted, yes. Gentle, yes. But not weak. Never suicidal. She had been murdered. Because she had seen too much. Because she had discovered the truth. Lisa's lips curved into a faint, bitter smile as she walked slowly around the room, her fingers brushing the edge of a crystal vase filled with fresh lilies, Ava's favorite. A cruel coincidence? Or a ghost of her memory still haunting this place? Her mind wandered back to the night it all unraveled. It had started innocently. Ava had confided in her during a late-night call. She had grown close to Victoria. Too close. Trusted her. Admired her beauty, her sophistication. But something changed after Ava found out about the affair. An affair that shattered not only her loyalty to Victoria, but her trust in her own husband. Lisa had never confronted her husband. She didn't need to. The truth burned in Ava's voice. "Victoria is dangerous, Lisa," she had said, her tone trembling. "She's not what she pretends to be. She's cold. Manipulative. And she's having an affair with Ryan." Lisa had gone silent, the air sucked from her lungs. Ryan, the man she had once loved. The man who had promised her forever. And Ava? Ava had known. She hadn't been angry. She hadn't cried. She had only sounded broken. "I tried to tell Aiden," she had whispered. "I thought he deserved to know. He's not a bad man, Lisa. He's just lost. But I think Victoria found out. And now I don't feel safe." It was the last time Lisa heard her sister's voice. 2 days later, she was dead. Lisa's grief had twisted into something darker. Her pain had forged a weapon. And that weapon was now standing inside the lion's den, waiting to strike. But revenge could not be rushed. So she had taken on a new identity. Lisa Winters, the rising actress. Refined. Graceful. Intelligent. A name that commanded curiosity, not suspicion. And through careful planning, she was cast in a major project sponsored by Hawthorne Media Group, the empire Aidan Hawthorne ruled. She knew she had to get close to him. Not to manipulate him, but to destroy the woman who destroyed Ava. Victoria. Everything about her was an illusion. A perfect mask. But Lisa had worn masks too. And she knew how to see through them. She had studied every move, every expression, every cold glance Victoria gave her husband when no one was watching. Aidan, on the other hand, intrigued her. He was powerful, yes, but not arrogant. Reserved. Focused. A man who ruled with silence, not chaos. He had no scandal attached to his name. No mistresses. No drama. Just a haunting distance in his eyes, like he had long forgotten how to feel. But he noticed Lisa. At first, it was subtle. His eyes would linger a little longer during meetings. His tone would soften slightly when he addressed her. He never flirted, he wasn't that kind of man. But she could feel it. Attention. An unspoken connection. She hadn't planned for it. She didn't want it. But it was there. Like static between them. She kept her distance. She didn't want feelings to cloud her mission. But she knew, if she wanted to break Victoria, she had to break the one thing that kept her powerful. Her title. Her name. Her husband. Take Aidan away, and Victoria would crumble. The butler returned. Mr. Hawthorne will see you now. In the East Wing study. Lisa followed him through the vast corridors of the mansion, her heels muted against Persian carpets and stone floors. She passed portraits of Aidan's ancestors, grand men with cold eyes and proud postures. Finally, the butler opened a pair of mahogany doors, revealing a dimly lit study. Aidan stood near the window, his silhouette outlined by the fading sunlight. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark tailored suit, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Miss Winters, he said without turning. His voice was deep, steady, controlled. Mr. Hawthorne, Lisa responded, her voice calm. He finally turned, his gaze meeting hers. There it was again, that silence between them. Not uncomfortable, but heavy. Charged. I just wanted to personally thank you, he said. Your work on the campaign has been exceptional. She inclined her head gracefully. Thank you. I'm honored to be part of it. He nodded slowly, his eyes not leaving her face. Where did you say you were from again? Lisa smiled faintly. Los Angeles. Born and raised. He studied her. Something about her face, something familiar. But he couldn't place it. Or maybe he didn't want to. You remind me of someone, he said quietly. Lisa tilted her head, her voice smooth. Good memories or bad ones? He didn't smile. I'm not sure yet. The moment lingered. Then, without another word, he turned back to the window. That will be all. She left the room slowly, her heart steady. Every encounter with him was another crack in Victoria's armor. The next day, during a studio shoot, it happened. Lisa was filming a romantic scene with a male co-star, a scripted kiss. The cameras rolled. The lights glared. The director shouted cues. And then Aidan walked in. Unexpected. Uninvited. He stood behind the camera crew, arms crossed, watching. Lisa felt it. The shift in energy. The heat of his gaze. The scene played out as rehearsed. A soft kiss. A lingering touch. But as Lisa pulled away from the actor, she saw Aidan's expression. Stone cold. But something simmered beneath. He left before the take ended. Walked out without a word. Drove home in silence, his mind a storm of thoughts he couldn't name. That night, something strange happened. Victoria, unaware of what had transpired, approached him in their bedroom. She wore a silk nightgown, her makeup soft, hair brushed out like it once had been when they were newlyweds. A hint of jasmine perfume lingered in the air, the same scent Lisa wore. And her dress, coincidentally similar to the one Lisa had worn during the shoot. He looked at her. For the first time in years, he touched her. Victoria's eyes widened in surprise. She moved closer. For once, he was reaching for her, not pushing her away. But as his lips neared hers, something hit him. A flash, Lisa's eyes, the scene, the kiss. Confusion tangled with guilt. He pulled back abruptly. "I can't," he muttered. Victoria blinked, stunned. "What's wrong?" He stood, unable to look at her. "I don't know." She sat alone on the edge of the bed, her hands clenched. Something inside her twisted. It wasn't just rejection. It was fear. Was he falling for someone else? And if he was? Victoria's world, her position, her power, her secrets, was about to come undone. Lisa wasn't just in the house anymore. She was in his mind. And slowly, she was becoming a threat far greater than Victoria could ever see coming. The days that followed Lisa's arrival at the mansion were nothing short of unnerving for Aiden. He couldn't explain it, and he hated that. He was a man of logic, of precision, his world built on order, clean lines, and calculated decisions. But Lisa, she unraveled him in ways he didn't expect. Every time she walked into a meeting, her presence shifted the air. It wasn't her beauty, though she had that in abundance. It was the stillness, the quiet command she carried. Lisa never vied for attention, never chased praise. And yet, all eyes turned to her, including his. He tried to dismiss it. Late at night, he'd sit in his home office with a glass of whiskey in hand, going over contracts and deals, but her image crept in like a ghost. The curve of her jawline. The slight smirk when she disagreed with a creative direction. The way her fingers trailed across a script as if she were reading something no one else could see. Her presence was a melody he couldn't silence. At first, he chalked it up to curiosity. She was new. Mysterious. Intelligent. He told himself it was nothing more than professional intrigue. But that illusion shattered one evening at a gala hosted by one of his longtime investors, Derek Whitmore, a man Aiden respected, even if he didn't particularly like him. Derek had a habit of treating everything like a game: women, money, friendships. That night, under the soft glow of chandeliers and jazz playing in the background, Derek leaned in close to Aiden with a smirk. "You know that actress working on your studio's upcoming project? Lisa Winters? Damn, she's fire. I asked her to dinner. She said she'd think about it." Aiden froze. He didn't let it show, but something inside him clenched. The way Derek said her name, like she was a possession, a prize, it made his blood simmer. Still, he gave a polite nod and excused himself, but the words lingered in his head like a stain he couldn't scrub out. 2 days later, it hit the tabloids. Rising star Lisa Winters spotted on intimate dinner date with billionaire investor Derek Whitmore. Romance brewing? Lisa Winters seen laughing, smiling during elegant night out with Aiden Knight's business partner. The photos were everywhere. Her soft smile across a candlelit table. Derek leaning in close. Aiden studied every frame longer than he should have. And Lisa? She didn't deny any of it. He told himself it didn't matter. But it did. Because since Ava died, Aiden hadn't let himself feel anything real. He hadn't touched Victoria in years. He hadn't even allowed himself to notice another woman, let alone obsess over one. But Lisa had slipped through that wall so easily it terrified him. The next week was chaos. Meetings ran late. Aiden snapped at assistants. He found himself distracted at the most inconvenient times. Whenever someone brought up Lisa's name, whether professionally or in gossip, he had to fight the urge to shut the conversation down completely. Then came the final blow. Derek invited Lisa to dinner again. But not just any dinner. A formal gathering hosted at Aiden's own mansion. The morning light streamed through the towering glass windows of the Whitmore mansion, bathing the sleek marble floors in gold. But beneath the luxury and silence of the estate, something darker stirred. Victoria Whitmore stood in her private dressing room, brushing her long dark hair in rhythmic strokes. Her gaze, however, wasn't focused on the mirror. It was distant, fixed on a feeling she couldn't shake off. Aiden had changed. For years, their marriage had hung by the thinnest of threads. He had always been emotionally distant, but lately, he seemed elsewhere. Not angry. Not cold. Just entirely detached. At first, Victoria thought it was the pressure from work. Aiden's media empire had tripled in size over the last year. But when she noticed how often his eyes lingered in the direction of her, Lisa, the feeling shifted from suspicion to certainty. Lisa Winters. The actress with grace and poise. Too poised. Too composed. Victoria didn't believe in coincidence. She didn't believe that a woman like Lisa simply walked into their lives, into Aiden's business, without a reason. She watched the way Lisa smiled, not overly charming, never seductive. Just enough to stir curiosity. Enough to make her dangerous. But Lisa had made one mistake. She underestimated Victoria. Later that day, in a quiet corner of the mansion, Lisa sat in the home office, scanning a security feed from her laptop. Behind her calm posture, her heart beat steadily. She had installed the cameras the first week she arrived, tiny, discreet, almost impossible to spot. Planted in Aiden's study, the main hallway, even the art room where Victoria often took private calls. She wasn't watching for Aiden. Not directly. She was waiting for Victoria to slip. And she had. Just last night, Victoria had spoken in hushed tones with someone over the phone. Lisa couldn't make out everything, but one sentence stood out. "It'll only take one drink." Lisa paused the recording, her jaw tightening. Victoria was planning something. And Lisa needed to be ready. That evening, Victoria put her plan in motion. She stood before the hotel room mirror, adjusting her black silk dress. The suite was luxury defined, roses, candles, fine wine chilled in a silver bucket. Everything carefully chosen to paint the illusion of romance. It was Aiden's birthday. She had called him personally. Not through assistants. Not via his staff. "I just want a quiet dinner," she had said, her voice laced with carefully measured warmth. "Just us. No pressure." He had hesitated. But eventually, he said yes. Not the hotel staff. Not emergency services. Someone discreet. 2 hours later, Aiden lay in a hospital bed. His vitals were stable. The drug hadn't been lethal, but it had been strong. Enough to alter his mind. Enough to render him defenseless. When he opened his eyes, Lisa was there. Sitting beside him. Calm. Watching. He turned his head slightly, wincing. "What happened?" he whispered. "You were drugged," Lisa said softly. "You came to me. Asked for help." He stared at the ceiling. Why would she do that? Lisa didn't answer. She didn't need to. But in that moment, something shifted between them. The distance they had carefully kept cracked. For the first time, Lisa saw him not as the cold husband of a manipulative woman, but as a man trapped in a web he didn't even fully understand. And Aiden saw her not as a passing face in his company, but as someone who had just saved his life. Back at the mansion, Victoria sat alone. The suite had been cleared. The candles burned low. She kept checking her phone. No call. No message. No sign of Aiden. She called the hotel front desk. He had checked out. Left hours ago. Panic clawed at her. Had he found out? Did Lisa? Her fingers tightened around the wine glass. Victoria had underestimated her. she wouldn't again. But neither would Lisa. Because tonight proved one thing. Aiden was beginning to see the truth. And for the first time, Lisa wasn't sure if revenge was all she wanted anymore. He woke to the sterile scent of antiseptic and the rhythmic beeping of hospital machines. The harsh white lights above pierced through the fog of his consciousness, and for a brief, disoriented moment, Aiden wondered if he had dreamt the whole night, the dinner with Victoria, the bitter taste of the drink, the spinning room, and Lisa's face emerging like a ghost in the corridor. But then he turned his head slightly, and there she was, Lisa. Curled into the plastic armchair beside his hospital bed, her long coat still on, her eyes closed in restless sleep. He blinked, trying to piece the memories together, but his head throbbed with every attempt. What he did remember clearly was the sense of panic when his body stopped responding, the sudden realization that he had been drugged, and the faint glimmer of salvation when he saw Lisa walking into the suite across the hallway. That moment wasn't imagined. That moment saved him. He stirred, and Lisa's eyes opened immediately. Not the kind of jolt people did when they awoke abruptly, but the alertness of someone who had barely allowed themselves to sleep, someone who had been watching, waiting. Their eyes met, and in that silence, something shifted. Aiden, who had always been careful, always composed, felt raw. Unprotected. Vulnerable. "You stayed," he said, his voice rough and low. "I couldn't leave," Lisa replied softly. "You needed help." Aiden didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to this, being the one who was rescued. His whole life had been built around protecting, controlling, managing. And here was this woman, whom he barely knew, staying with him through the night, not asking questions, not taking photos, not calling the press. Just being there. The door opened, and a nurse stepped in, checking his vitals, adjusting the 4-drip. Lisa stood and stepped aside politely, offering the nurse space. As the medical staff did their job, Aiden's mind swam with memories, how Victoria had invited him with such softness in her voice, promising it would be a simple dinner. How she had smiled too sweetly as she poured the wine. How quickly the room had begun to blur around him. He should have known. But guilt made him blind. After the nurse left, Aiden looked at Lisa again. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," she said. Her voice was gentle, but her gaze was steady. "But you should be careful. I think you know that now." He nodded, swallowing the rising wave of shame. She drugged me." Lisa said nothing. "I think she was planning to. I don't even want to know." "She was," Lisa replied simply. "And it's not the first time she's done something like this, is it?" He flinched. "What do you mean?" Lisa didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a small flash drive from her bag and set it on the table beside his bed. "When you're ready, watch it. It's not the full story. But it's enough to see the direction it's going." With that, she gave him a soft nod and left the room, leaving behind not just the flash drive but a storm of questions he couldn't escape. Days passed. Aiden was discharged, but the incident haunted him. He kept thinking about how easy it had been for Victoria to manipulate him. How many times had she done it in the past? How long had he convinced himself that her obsession was merely a reaction to a cold marriage and not something darker? He returned home, but nothing felt the same. The mansion, once a quiet monument of wealth and order, now felt haunted. Victoria greeted him with concern, too much concern. She pretended not to know what had happened. Claimed he had a bad reaction to the wine, perhaps stress-related. He played along. For now. But inside, he was changing. The image of Lisa watching over him in the hospital, calm and firm, refused to fade. And then there was the flash drive. Late at night, when Victoria had gone to her wing of the house, Aiden locked himself in his private study, inserted the drive, and pressed play. What he saw made his blood run cold. Grainy footage from what looked like an abandoned guest house, an old structure still owned by the family but rarely visited, showed Victoria entering late at night. She wasn't alone. With her was a man Aiden recognized instantly, Ava's husband. The two were arguing. Furious. Their voices captured by hidden mics Lisa had somehow placed inside. She's ruining everything, Ava's husband hissed. She knows too much, Victoria replied, her tone icy. Just like her sister did. What do we do? What we did before. Silence. Then Victoria's voice again. We get rid of her. Aiden paused the video, heart pounding in his chest. Lisa had known. Not just about Victoria's affair with Ava's husband, but about Ava's death. And she had suspected murder. He felt sick. He had never asked too many questions about Ava's death. It had been ruled a suicide, tragic, unexpected, but tidy. Now, watching this, everything unraveled. Guilt clawed at his throat. Ava had served his household with unwavering loyalty. She had been kind, humble, dedicated. He had never suspected that beneath the walls of his mansion, something so dark could be hiding. And now her sister was back, not for fame or ambition, but for the truth. And perhaps, for revenge. He didn't sleep that night. When morning came, he went through his day mechanically, attending meetings, pretending to listen, his mind consumed. Every time Lisa's name came up, every time someone mentioned her growing popularity or elegance, something inside him tightened. She had walked into his life wearing a mask. But now, he saw glimpses of what lay beneath. Meanwhile, Lisa was preparing for the next step. She knew the recording wasn't enough. It was damning, yes. But to take Victoria down, she needed a full confession, one that could not be denied, edited, or erased. She planned it carefully. She visited the abandoned guesthouse herself, making sure the equipment remained intact, the audio clear. She strengthened the setup, added hidden cameras in new corners. She made sure everything was recorded in high quality. And then, she waited. She knew Victoria would return. Because Victoria didn't believe she had been caught. She still believed she was in control. And Lisa wanted her to think that, for just a little longer. She arranged for Aiden to receive anonymous emails. Snippets of surveillance, short clips, teasers of the full truth. She wanted him curious, involved. Because the final step would require him. Victoria, growing paranoid, confronted Lisa unexpectedly one afternoon in the media building's rooftop cafe. The wind tugged at their hair, and Victoria sat down uninvited across from her. I don't like games, she said. Lisa smiled calmly. Then you shouldn't have started one. Victoria narrowed her eyes. I know what you're doing. And I know why you're here. Lisa took a sip of her coffee. Then you must know how it ends. Victoria leaned closer. You think you're smart. But women like you, actresses, always fall. Because you don't understand power. Lisa set her cup down gently. And women like you? You forget one thing. Victoria raised a brow. You always think no one's watching. She stood and walked away, leaving Victoria stunned. That night, Lisa returned to the guest house. She had received a tip. Victoria was planning to meet Ava's husband again. This time, for something final. She set the cameras to record, adjusted the lighting to ensure clear visibility. She remembered the old farmhouse at the edge of their estate, a forgotten property Aiden never visited. She'd used it before, long ago, when things with Ava began to spiral. It was perfect, private, abandoned, and silent. No one would hear screams there. She reached out to the only other person who hated Lisa just as much, Ava's husband. He was furious, desperate, and he blamed Lisa for unraveling his life. Together, they plotted to end her. But Lisa wasn't naive. She had placed hidden cameras all around Victoria's known hideouts, including the farmhouse. She had quietly followed every move, sensing Victoria's growing desperation. So when the moment came, when Ava's husband offered Lisa a ride to a so-called charity event, she accepted, knowing exactly where she would be taken. The car ride was silent. The man beside her barely spoke. His knuckles were pale on the steering wheel. Lisa knew the game now. She remained calm, watching the road signs, mentally ticking off every location until they turned onto a dirt path that led to the farmhouse. The trap was set. The night was unusually quiet, with clouds crawling slowly over the moonlight like secrets trying to hide in the dark. Inside the lavish estate owned by Victoria, the tension was suffocating. The chandeliers sparkled above, but the air was laced with rage and desperation. Victoria paced across the marble floor of her private chamber, her mind spinning with only one thought: Lisa. The woman who had stolen her husband's attention, who had become a threat to everything Victoria had worked for. She could feel Aiden slipping away, not through betrayal or scandal, but through silence. Through the way his eyes no longer searched for her. Through the way he never asked where she was going, or whom she was with. She was vanishing from his world, and that void was being filled with Lisa's mysterious presence. Victoria's anger had long passed jealousy. It was war now. And she was ready to fight dirty. The next morning, Lisa walked calmly into her apartment. She had just finished a long shoot, tired but still sharp. As soon as she entered, she checked the tiny monitor hidden behind a painting on the wall. Her trap was working. Through hidden cameras she had planted earlier, she saw the secret meeting taking place in the guesthouse, Victoria and Ava's husband, both angry and desperate, unaware that their words were being recorded. And waited from her hidden vantage point nearby. They came. Arguing again. Desperate. She has proof, Ava's husband hissed. She's not scared. She needs to be, Victoria snapped. We'll scare her. And if that doesn't work. Lisa leaned forward slightly, her heart thudding. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper, but it was still caught on mic. We'll finish it. Like Ava. No body. No trail. Lisa pressed the stop button. It was enough. The next day, she met Aiden in his office. She said nothing at first, just handed him a new drive. This is everything. Aiden looked at her, his face a battlefield of emotions: anger, disbelief, guilt, and something else. Why didn't you come to me sooner? You weren't ready, Lisa said. You needed to see it for yourself. He swallowed. And now? Now the trap is set. You decide what happens next. Aiden stared at the drive in his hands. The weight of it was heavier than anything he'd ever held. And behind her calm eyes, Lisa waited. For justice, for Ava, for everything she'd planned to finally fall into place. The night was unusually quiet, as though the world itself held its breath, knowing something dark was about to unfold. Victoria sat alone in her private suite, the luxurious silk curtains fluttering gently with the evening breeze, but she didn't notice. Her hands were trembling. Rage clouded her thoughts. Lisa. That woman. That snake. That thief who dared to walk into her world and twist it upside down. For weeks, Victoria had watched Aiden drift further away. He used to be indifferent, now he was cold. And his silence, his late returns home, the way his eyes no longer even flickered at her presence, it all pointed to one truth. Lisa had seduced him. Or worse, Lisa had replaced her. Victoria paced the room in silence, her manicured nails tapping against the crystal glass in her hand. She had tried everything: charm, seduction, threats, but Aiden was no longer hers. And now, she was losing him to a woman she didn't even see coming. But if Lisa thought she could steal what belonged to Victoria, she had another thing coming. Victoria was no fool. She was a survivor. And survivors didn't beg, they destroyed. So she planned.